everyone, and welcome to a new episode of The Dowagers. I don't even know what episode this is, so we'll leave it at that. I'm Cynthia Schrock.
And I'm Sharon Smith.
And we're so glad to have you with us today. I know it's been a few weeks since we've put up a podcast or a video cast or whatever we want to call it. But Sharon and I have had some difficult things going on. I mean, not only are we coming upon our second year, but we also, Sharon had some issues because we had a hurricane come through in Florida here. And Sharon's been dealing with a lot of rain and flooding at her house and in her house and everything like that. So it's been a little bit, but we're back.
We are.
And
we're happy to be here.
Yes and no, huh?
Yeah. Yes and no. Yes. Yes.
So in today's episode, we decided we're going to talk about year two. So Sharon, you just celebrated year two.
I did.
And your ordeal was much longer than my ordeal was from beginning to end.
Yeah.
So tell me, when you approached year two, kind of give me a rundown on your year two from year one, from the time year one ended till now when you're at your end of your second year.
Okay. Well, I think one thing, people's perspective is that after you have reached your, 1 year mark, you should be better. You should be okay now. You should be getting on with life, and you should be better per se. Well, it doesn't really work that way. And that in itself is a bit of I would say a battle, an obstacle that you have to go over. And I think when you have bad days, people don't really know how to handle you when that happens, because they think, well, it's been a year.
Right.
And and mainly because people have moved on with their lives, and they should. That's what's normal. But this is our life.
Yeah.
So I think as year one ends and you get into year two, I mean, we don't know what to expect either.
Mm-mm.
We've never done this before, and God knows we never would want to do this ever again, and don't want anybody else to have to do this, but it is a fact of life. So there's, I guess, the fog wears off. I guess that's what, people kind of relate it to. The fog wears off, the numbness, and now you've found yourself in real life. That was like what you had before until this tragedy happened. And so you're trying to fit in, and I think for me, I was trying to bring my old life into my new life.
Yeah.
And so I was still trying to have those same feelings, do those same things. And it doesn't really work like that. It's a lot. It's just hard. It's just not, you can't do that. You've gotten thrown into something else now.
Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, when you say that, trying to fit our old life our new life from our old life, forward, a lot of people don't even want you to. I know that sounds weird, but yes. I almost feel sometimes as if it's an unspoken thing. And I think that's why the couples we hung out with, I don't hear from them. That's why people that you used to hang around with aren't there anymore. Correct. It's because they know that something has changed and they're uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me kind of sad, though, that instead of being there for you to help you through and navigate through the new, they kind of drop you. And not everybody, but a lot of them will just drop you because it makes them uncomfortable to see you.
Yeah.
And so that's after the 1 year. And then what you end up with is you're into year two. And by year two, which is where we're at, You're supposed to be all better. Don't you know that?
Right.
Why are
Right.
you
It's
still
only
bringing him
there
up? He's not here
tolerant of
anymore.
you. Like,
I I have the hardest time because you just said something in your when you were talking there. You said something, other people have moved on like they should, but we have never forgotten. They've forgotten. We have yet to forget
yeah.
because we live with it every day.
Right. Like we
We
don't.
live with the
There's no
loss
other
every day.
choice. There's not like, oh, A and B. No, it's just as what we have, and we're still trying to figure things out. And quite honestly, thinking back to the first year, I I can't even remember some of the things that I did, or how when I do, I'm like, how did I do that? How did I?
Um,
I just don't know. But you're just in numbness and you're moving forward, and I think people are kind of like moving you along a little bit and helping you with things. But then you get to 2 years, and by not, I mean, honestly, for me, it feels like at best 6 months. It does not feel like 2 years. I mean,
I
when I
agree
say
with you.
it, I can't even fathom it. I'm like, it can't be 2 years. It can't. I mean, God, I'm probably gonna say that at 5. It can't be 5. It's so hard. Um, but people do want you to. They want the old Sharon, they want the old Cynthia, they want the old whomever. That's what they want. And you're never going to be that person again in a lot of ways. You're going to still look the same. There's going to be some things that are the same about you, but you are never going to be the same person again because you lost the other half of you.
Right.
And and you just can't be. So it's really hard for people to grasp that. And I mean, I find myself saying, "You just don't understand. You
Yeah.
just don't understand."
Yeah.
You know, and how could they? How could they possibly understand? Unless they've been through it. And
Well,
those of us that have, we understand.
well, what's so funny about it is I look right at my friends a lot of times, the ones that have stuck around, and I said, you guys might not want to face this, but at some point you're going to be on one end or the other of this. And I've said that before on
Absolutely.
this podcast. I know I have. You're either going to be the one going or the one staying. That's just all there is to it. Unless you're fortunate enough for both of you to go at the same time, but you're still going to leave debris in your path, in your wake when you have other people left behind
Right,
because you're gone.
right,
And
right.
that's the hard part about this. What have you done, you think, in this year two that was different than year one? Because I hear, like for me, I know I felt like I was putting straws on top of each other. I was under the water so much when I lost Eric that putting straws on top of each other, I felt I was literally breathing like that. And I mean, I even got to the point in year one of being so stressed out because of the heavy financial burden that was on me through everything. Because I've dealt with that side of things. That I ended up with shingles. Horrible, horrible case of shingles, and just from the stress of all of it. And so that physically it can affect you. But going into year two, I myself have been more purposeful in making sure that I talk about Eric more, the things that I've learned from him. And really, to be honest with you, I should be writing things down.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah,
done that, but I really should be writing things down for my granddaughter, for the grandchildren, so that they know phrases that, Pop used to say or things like that coming
yeah,
up. But is there anything that you've done in the
yeah.
last year two that you've noticed is more purposeful in keeping Jeff's memory alive?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, we we obviously we celebrate him every time we can, and we talk about him a lot. Um, and exactly what you just said. I find myself wanting to well, doing it and wanting to do more, of course, writing things that Jeff said,
Yeah.
so, and then also songs that he liked to sing, or just songs that he thought he was singing and he wasn't, and how the funny things about
Those
him.
are the joyful things.
Right,
Yes.
exactly. So, because those make me laugh, they make all of us laugh. um so doing those kinds of things. Like I want to ask the kids, like, what do you remember that, dad would say that, we'd all laugh about or whatever. And my husband was notorious for making up words, be like, what is that? You have your own vocabulary, your own, and it was just so funny. So I find myself doing that more, and reminiscing more. Like, what do you remember about dad? What do you remember about grandpa? I just asked my grandson that the other day. I said, because we were sitting on the pier by the water, and he goes, he said, Grandpa, send us a dolphin. Send Grandma and I a dolphin.
Oh,
Right? And so then, so I was like, oh boy, I hope we get a dolphin. And I said, what do you remember? What's your favorite thing that you remember about Grandpa? And it's kind of funny because the things that they say are not the things that you think they'll say.
right,
Right?
right.
Like something, oh, that was a big thing, And then he says to me, and he's 5, he just turned 5, and he said, well, Grandma, what's your favorite thing about Grandpa?
Oh,
Whoa. Well, the tears, I had to fight the tears back. And I
oh,
said, boy, I said, you know what, Finn, I have so many memories of Grandpa. I said, so many. I would have, it would be hard for me to pick a favorite one, but, and then I said, this or that. But yeah, so I think, like you said, being more purposeful
yeah,
about remembering and different things. And aside from that, another thing, and everybody should do this, and before this happens to you, is to take care of your affairs.
yes,
Because if we've learned anything, we learned that things can happen very quickly.
yep,
You don't have time to take care of some of those things.
yeah,
So I have readjusted our will and trust. I'm still working on a few more aspects of that, um, and wanting to add certain things in, because now the person that I shared all the things with, that knew, just like I knew what Jeff wanted, he knew what I wanted. Well, your kids don't necessarily know those things.
no, and they're not in the day-to-day grind of the in and out where those conversations between Eric and I would happen naturally, between you and Jeff would happen naturally. That's not taking place anymore.
Right, right.
And
And
so it's important to have that.
it was a little bit hard because when we were doing this last week, and, with the attorney and the witnesses and my son and I, and so I'm like, okay, so you need to, read this. And he goes, yeah, yeah, I got it. Just, you just write it down and I'll do it. It's like, no, no. See, that gives me panic attacks because I'm like, you got to know. Just like you said, you and Eric talked about things like,
Yeah.
well, if this, make sure this, or make sure that, or whatever, I want.
Or even
So,
something as simple as I knew all his passwords to absolutely everything, even his work computer.
yes, yes.
And
Yeah,
when
because a
he
lot of people
passed,
do not know that.
his work needed that because they were in the middle of a massive project that Eric was in charge of. And
Yes.
so I was able to give them access to that because we shared absolutely everything. That's one thing I'm thankful for because I do know widows who knew nothing
Oh,
and
they didn't
lost
know
things
where money
because of
was. They didn't know passwords. They didn't
yes,
know
yes,
nothing. And it's like, and you get blindsided. And I mean, I can almost understand when you're younger and you lose your spouse,
right,
because you're not thinking about those things. Death is a long ways away.
right. Well, it
It
was a
is.
long ways away from me, is what I thought too, you know?
Well, yeah, me, you, and me both.
Yeah.
So, um, so yeah, having those things in order is very important. And so now it's become really important to me, and to really be like you know, you have to listen to me, because actually my son and I actually got in an argument about it because I said, you're not listening to me. He goes, Mom, nope, you're not listening to me, because I have to tell you these things. And so yeah, that's really important,
Yeah.
really important. And it makes you think about more things,
Yes.
that, like we talked about, something happens in the hospital, and they they don't necessarily understand how we're thinking about things.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
okay, so now I've added a whole nother layer to this. Is like, okay, so you need to call this person that have experienced what I've experienced or understand what I went through. Now this is how I feel about things. So they know, and they're gonna know who you need to contact. You're not.
Yeah, that's
So,
true. That's true.
so that's a whole nother layer. I mean,
Because once again, we're new to this and we are creating a new shoot off of our life of different people that they have yet to meet.
yeah,
And
right.
different people that we now have relationships with and friendships with that our kids have not met and things like that because they don't understand that we're literally,
Yep.
if you picture a tree, it's almost like a new branch has been formed off of it because now we've
Yeah.
got this when I say new life, it's a new life, but yet it's still connected to the same tree.
Yeah.
But they don't understand the relationships that are breaking off of that branch yet because they're not in that daily grind with each other of where we're talking and calling. I mean, I would call Eric up to 3 to 4 times a day. We would
Oh,
talk on the phone. Easy.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And that,
I don't do that. I don't do that with my kids.
no.
I don't
Yeah.
do that at all with my kids. So there's that day-to-day grind that's completely gone, that we're building relationships with other people or doing things that they have no clue, but yet they're the ones that are going to have to clean up the mess later on. That's why it is so
Right.
important to have things in order.
It is. And we always want to have everything um set for our kids.
Yeah.
Or it,
Yeah.
like if Jeff and I would have went together, we had things set for our kids, in a case of emergency binder, with the where do we pay this bill? Who, what do we have? I even dialed it into what's in my wallet, credit cards, anything, and took pictures of it and put it in there so that it like they would know. But and of course that was for me too, in case I lost my purse or something, I would, in my wallet, I would know, oh, geez, that's right, I had this, that, and the other thing in there. Because in that time you don't think. But um, yeah, and passwords. And I said, I have to be diligent about um, updating that when anything changes, because you know how that is. They always want you to change your
Oh, I
passport.
know. That's so hard.
And
And
then
when
you got to
you're doing
remember,
it, it's even harder. It's like, oh, I don't even want to do this anymore.
right. And you
Because
get your pet.
everything falls on you now. It all falls on
That's
you.
just it. And that is such a heavy burden to
It is
have.
a heavy burden. It is
To,
a heavy burden.
just, oh my gosh, it's like, even just like with this hurricane, okay, preparing for it. Like,
Yes.
okay, I had a lot to take care of that we would have taken care of together. And then after the fact, now it's like, then my pool gets flooded and I'm like, this whole big thing. And it's like, okay, well, who do I call? And then at this time, you have to be so careful because so many people are trying to scam you.
Yep. Yep. You
And
do
you're
have
like a sitting duck, because it's like, oh, well, she's alone, so. And you hate to be a burden to calling people and go, God, I need your help. Can you come over and help me? Because we want to be independent.
I know. I know.
We do. But at sometimes we're out of our league.
Yep. Well, do you know what I tell myself? And whenever I need help, I literally tell myself, okay, that's pride that you're dealing with. You need to humble yourself and ask for help. It's
That's,
okay. It's okay to have a humble heart. So often, the reason we don't want to ask is one is pride, and two is fear of being judged.
yeah,
And we cannot allow that. We cannot allow that
that's a good point.
to cloud our own personal thinking when we know that there are people that we can call on that are willing to help us. One of the things too that, and I think you did this with some of Jeff's shirts, is you took in year two, you took some of his shirts and had them made into pillows. Is that what you did?
I had one made into a pillow, and then we had some stuffed animals made for the
Oh, that's right.
kids.
Yeah.
And they also scaled them. I scaled one shirt down that I really liked so that I could wear.
Oh,
And
okay.
and I know that I still have his shirts, and and I know that, my son wants to do the same. So yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
then
neat.
that's the other thing that keeps Jeff with us.
It does. It does. And you know what I was thinking, with the things like you have done those pillows. I just recently, just today of all things, we finally finished the last square of
Mm,
Eric's quilt from his shirts. I'm making a big quilt.
okay.
And I just finished the last square. And now my friend Teresa will piece them all together and then start quilting it.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, you want to do something that's healing in year two, and that is, make something like that. Use their clothing. Don't get rid of it so fast. I mean, Eric stayed in the closet for over a year. I couldn't even clean it out. I couldn't even bring myself to clean it out. And even when I did take his shirts down, they just went into a bag and set on the floor where I could still see them. And I could not get rid of everything. The things he hardly ever wore, got rid of it, just didn't have an issue with it. And but this project has really been helpful for me, because sometimes when you're working with that, I'm amazed at how either I had one shirt. I touched all of his shirts, took them apart, we cut them up in the squares, we did all of that with the quilt. And I had one shirt that I must not have laid hands on during that whole process just a couple weeks ago.
Uh-oh.
I reached over and I picked that shirt up.
Wow.
And I was gone.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel him in that shirt. I could smell him in that shirt. I could see him in that shirt. I literally just sat there in my friend's house where we make this quilt and just cried and cried and cried and cried holding this shirt, because that shirt, the touch, the feel, everything about it held such a deep memory in me. It was one of my favorite shirts that he must have worn when I would hug him. It was like nothing I'd experienced in the last 2 years. That was like all over again. And this was just a few weeks ago that happened.
Right.
And I'm thankful for the friend that I do have, because she'll just sit there and cry with me, But sometimes making a heritage item like that, like the pillows, the stuffed toys, the quilts, to pass on, it becomes like that heritage that you are keeping that person's memory alive.
Yeah.
And it makes it special
It does.
for
It
the
does.
rest of the family, because they can say, if you think about it, we have so lost that art in our society as a whole of, oh, that was grandma so-and-so's quilt that we passed down, or grandma so-and-so's blanket that she knitted
Right.
when she was this. We've really lost that in our society, that, for
We're
those
a
of us,
throwaway world.
we are. For those of us who've suffered such great loss, maybe this is an awakening to us. Maybe this is a spurring for us to say, hey, let's bring some of those things back, so that our families can have that tangible thing that they can continue to pass on and everything until, the next person, and have the story that goes right along with that item.
Well, it's funny that you should say that. And when you think of losing somebody, like, for most people, it's their grandma, grandpa, mom, or dad. And then, when you're always asked, or most of the time you're asked, is there anything here that you want?
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
then people start going through the house, and it's interesting because people will pick usually something that might be unusual, something that
Yes.
wouldn't think that it's like, oh, this was worth so much money, I have to have that. That's not necessarily the case,
No, no.
right? And so I still, and gosh, my dad has been gone since 1996, and I still have his blue checkered flannel shirt. And every once in a blue
Wow.
moon, I'll put it on because my dad wore that all the time. We
Yeah.
lived in a cold state, and he had a watch that he wore, and I wore that watch forever. I still have it, but I wore it forever because he had it on when he died, and it's like, man, I took it off, and it's like it's on my wrist now.
Yeah.
But I told my son, because I'm sure if they went through my closet, if I died today, they went through my closet, they would probably throw that out, have not even know, right? And so I said the other day, I said, oh, by the way, just for future reference, this is Grandpa's shirts that I have had since 1996 when he died. He kind of looked at me kind of cockeyed. Um, and with my mom, I have a lot of things with my mom, but one thing that I am holding real dearly right now is her Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And I go through it and I find where she wrote things, she
Yeah.
underlined things, read this, or what. And I'm like, I, you know, and so I'm like, huh. And sometimes it feels like she's talking to me, that, it's like, you need to know this. And my mom was, very faithful. And I said, gosh, I wish I could be more like my mom because she was like that nice person, that never said anything bad about anybody. And I'd be like, oh my God, are you kidding? That friend of yours, and she'd say,
Nice person.
no, no. I'm like, I'm
You're a
not
nice
that
person.
nice.
You're a nice person, Sharon.
I'm just not as nice as my mom. So sometimes I say, Mom, I'd like to be more nicer like you. Um,
Uh,
so that's kind of funny. So, when, like when our husbands
yeah,
passed away, and then our kids, and, so it's interesting the things that people want to hang on to.
that's
And,
true. That's actually true.
and I can tell you, and I don't like, when the kids are over here, whatever, and they're touched, I said, okay, just very careful with that because
Yes.
Grandpa got that for me, so I'm almost like a little, like, oh God, they'd probably be afraid. But if it got broke, I would be crushed
It would just
for
break
a
your heart.
while. It
Absolutely.
would. It would.
Yeah.
It's almost like that loss all over again. But
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I had a couple years ago, 2020, at Christmas time, there was the Christmas star that that was in the sky for a number of nights, and it was like this big ordeal. And every night I'd be out there looking for this Christmas star, And Jeff was just, and come out, come out. He cracked me up. So at Christmas, he got me one of the presents. He got me this silver star, and it says guiding light on it, and then it also has a little tag on it, metal tag, and it says hope. And we put it on the Christmas tree. And then the next year after he was gone, I put it on the Christmas tree. And then sometime in that year, it 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 disappeared. And my granddaughter, who was just one at the time, just a toddler, the last time I remember seeing it, she had it in her hands in our bedroom, and specifically in the bathroom. And I thought, and I couldn't find it. And I mean, I looked for
Oh,
tore drawers apart, and I kept, it's got to be here. And I finally just reserved myself that it got thrown in the garbage, and I threw it away. But it like this has been on my mind constantly. And 2 weeks ago, I was getting ready to go someplace, and for whatever reason, and I have two pairs of cowboy boots, and for whatever reason, I put on a pair of, I wasn't going to wear them, but I think I was listening to a song, and it was a country song, and I thought, oh, I should try my boots on, see how they, yeah, I haven't had them on for a long time. And I stuck my foot into my cowboy boot, and I know the kids have had these boots on because they always go in my closet and fool around. So I stuck my foot in, and how you stick your foot into something, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, you pull your foot up because you're like, something's in there. I'm like,
in
what?
Florida, it could be anything. It could be
Right, exactly.
a
And
cockroach, a lizard. It could
right, exactly. I'm like, oh God. So I pulled it out and I grabbed the boot and I tipped it upside down, and it was the star. I cried. Like the tears just bursted out of my eyes, crying, and oh my goodness, carrying on. And I'm like, I can't believe it. So I was like, I was so happy. So now I feel like, okay, all right, I got it all now. I got everything. I'm not missing anything now.
right.
It was comforting, you
Aw.
know? And I'm like, well, guard that thing with my life now. I'm like, that's never happening again.
Not
It's
go
so
back in the
funny.
booth.
Right? Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's so funny how something so
I
minute,
know.
insignificant can mean so much. And that's why I feel sorry for people sometimes when, people come in and they think they're doing a favor,
And they
and
clean
they
your house
and
out
they
after a
clean the
loss.
house, and they clean everything out. seriously, I think that would have put me over the edge.
Sharon, I'm telling you, I've talked to several widows that's exactly what happened. Somebody came in and said, now you got to get rid of everything as fast as you can. I mean, that is probably one of my biggest warnings to widows today. Just don't do it. Don't
No.
do things fast. Don't be pressured into things like that. Don't do it because you're going to say, I wish I would have kept. I wish I could have. I wish you're going to go, boy, I wish I would have done that. And then that just gives the enemy a heyday in your mind of, oh,
Yeah.
you didn't love him. And I mean, there's all those kinds of thoughts that can then wreak havoc on your mind, and you cannot go there. That's why we cannot pressure women who've lost their husbands, because that's basically what we address on here. Don't pressure them into getting rid of the stuff so fast. Don't allow even if there's his children and your children and things, don't allow them to pressure you. Just take your time with it, because that's just the pressure is just too much to do that for people like that.
It is because you need time. You need time to work through this and
process through it.
How much time? How much time? I don't know. We don't know. We're learning every
So
day how to deal with this. Honestly, Jeff's stuff is still in the closet. It just got moved down.
Yep.
Even my son goes, "Oh, I see Dad got moved down a little." I said, "Yep," and it's perfectly. I have enough space to do that, so I'm okay with that. Some people don't, and they have to do other things, but.
Well, I'll tell you, if my friend Teresa had not come to me and said, Cynthia, let's make a quilt with all of Eric's clothes that he wore regularly, that meant something, they'd still be in the closet. It's only the fact that she came to me. And here's the thing. I trust her implicitly. She is part owner of a quilt shop. She knows what she's doing. This is what she does for work. That's why I'm like, yes, I could do that. And she has me doing it with her. So it's not like she's just taking it, but it's that process. And she's really, really understanding what a healing it is to work through this. And, I mean, it takes forever to make one, but it would be so great if there was like a place that widows could go to do this kind of thing that somebody would help them.
Yeah, that would be. But that's something to think about.
It's a lot of time. It takes a lot of time and a lot of knowledge, on how to do that.